Let's rewind the clock a bit. The name Kreuger may sound distant to most, but to anyone who understands power dynamics, it carries weight. Ivar Kreuger, known as the Match King, was once one of the most powerful financiers in Europe. He built an empire that spanned continents, controlling the match industry and lending money to governments during the Great Depression. His rise and mysterious fall became a legend, but in Sweden, the name Kreuger became synonymous with dominance through intelligence, strategy, and influence, not brute force. Today, as Sweden stands tall in Europe's security landscape, the echoes of Kreuger's legacy have returned, and this time they're aimed straight at Vladimir Putin's fragile empire. Sweden, once known for neutrality, has transformed into one of the most strategically important nations in Europe. Its decision to join NATO sent shockwaves through Moscow, but even before that, Sweden was quietly preparing for a new kind of warfare: economic, technological, and psychological. The Kremlin underestimated how deeply Sweden's industries and intelligence networks could influence the balance of power in the region. It wasn't the roar of NATO jets that frightened Putin, it was the realization that Sweden was capable of outsmarting Russia at every level. In many ways, Sweden is fighting Russia in the 21st century version of warfare innovation, cyber defense, and economic resilience. The country's tech giants, advanced defense systems, and energy strategies have all combined into a form of power that Russia can't easily counter. This is where the ghost of Kreuger becomes symbolic. Like Kreuger's financial web that once controlled nations, Sweden today weaves a modern web of influence through technology, energy independence, and intelligence sharing with NATO allies. Putin can threaten with missiles, but he cannot outmaneuver an economy and network that quietly suffocates his every move. Russia's main weakness has always been its dependence on energy exports. Sweden and its Nordic allies are dismantling that power structure by driving Europe toward green energy independence. The more Europe moves away from Russian oil and gas, the less leverage Moscow holds. Sweden's green technology, wind farms, and innovations in battery production are becoming Europe's new weapons. In the Kremlin, every meeting about sanctions or oil prices echoes one harsh truth: Sweden's influence is breaking the financial chains that once made Europe bow to Moscow. But it's not just economics. The Swedish defense sector has evolved into one of the most advanced in the world. The Saab Gripen fighter jets are known for their efficiency, agility, and adaptability, a symbol of how Sweden operates in silence but strikes with precision. These jets may not carry the same fear factor as America's F-35s, but their design philosophy reflects something deeper: resilience and independence. Sweden's defense thinking mirrors Kreuger's business strategy, calculated, innovative, and unstoppable once in motion. Putin's intelligence circles have long feared Sweden's growing role in European defense networks. With access to cutting-edge radar systems, satellite communications, and secure intelligence sharing platforms, Sweden has effectively surrounded Russia with an invisible wall of surveillance and data power. Every move the Russian military makes in the Baltic Sea, every signal from the Arctic to Kaliningrad, is being watched. It's not just NATO radars that are active, it's Sweden's silent systems that see what Russia wants to hide. The new generation of Swedish leaders understands that power is no longer about territory, it's about control of data, supply chains, and alliances. In every one of those categories, Sweden is miles ahead of Russia. While the Kremlin clings to Soviet-style dominance, Sweden is crafting a future where influence comes through knowledge and cooperation. It's exactly how Ivar Kreuger once operated, using intelligence, not intimidation, to bend nations to his will. The similarity is striking, and perhaps that's why the name Kreuger has become symbolic again in Swedish discussions about modern influence. For Putin, the greatest nightmare is not losing a battle, it's losing control. And that's exactly what Sweden represents. A country that once stayed out of wars is now at the center of Europe's defense structure, reshaping strategies and pushing Russia out of the decision-making circle. The psychological blow of Sweden joining NATO is enormous for Moscow. For centuries, Russia believed it could dominate the Baltic region. Now, that illusion is shattered. From Finland to Norway, from Denmark to Sweden, a northern shield has formed a network of nations united by intelligence, technology, and mutual defense. When you look at how Sweden operates, you realize it's not just reacting to Russia, it's predicting it. Swedish intelligence has been instrumental in detecting Russian cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and espionage efforts across Europe. The Swedish security service SAPO has exposed multiple Russian spy networks, dismantling Moscow's efforts to infiltrate European institutions. These quiet victories never make the headlines, but in Moscow, they sting more than a military defeat. Putin knows that if he cannot spy effectively, he cannot control narratives, and without control, his regime begins to crumble. Another dimension of Sweden's power lies in its innovation ecosystem. The country is home to some of the world's most advanced tech startups and defense firms. From AI-driven surveillance systems to drone technology and cybersecurity, Sweden's advancements are shaping Europe's digital defense frontier. This is modern warfare not fought with bullets, but with algorithms and encryption. Every time Sweden strengthens its cyber shield, Russia loses another avenue of attack. And in a world increasingly reliant on digital infrastructure, that's a battle Russia is ill-equipped to win. Sweden's support for Ukraine has also been unwavering and strategic. Unlike some Western nations that struggle with political hesitations, Sweden has provided consistent aid, weapons, and diplomatic backing. Its supply of Archer artillery systems to Ukraine was a message not just of solidarity but of deterrence. These weapons, known for their speed and accuracy, represent Sweden's technological edge, a subtle reminder that even without massive armies, precision and intelligence can change the outcome of war. Putin's propaganda machine often mocks Sweden, painting it as a small nation without global influence. But behind the Kremlin walls, officials know the truth. Sweden's entry into NATO, its economic strength, and its control of key European technologies make it one of Russia's most serious long-term threats. Unlike other adversaries, Sweden doesn't rely on bluster. Its power is quiet, coordinated, and deeply rooted in systems that can't be easily attacked. This is exactly what terrifies Putin, in an enemy he can't intimidate or destabilize. In many ways, Sweden represents everything Russia isn't: transparent, democratic, innovative, and trusted. These qualities make it a magnet for cooperation and alliances. While Russia isolates itself through aggression, Sweden builds bridges through mutual respect and shared goals. And that's where the psychological warfare begins. Every partnership Sweden forms, every investment it attracts, and every military exercise it participates in sends a clear message to Moscow. The world is moving forward, and Russia is being left behind. Inside Russia, this realization breeds insecurity. Putin's power relies on projecting strength, but as nations like Sweden rise in influence, his narrative weakens. He can no longer claim that the West is divided or that small nations are powerless. The very idea of Sweden, a country of just 10 million people standing shoulder to shoulder with superpowers, undermines his entire philosophy of domination. It shows that intelligence and unity can overpower aggression and fear. What makes this story even more fascinating is how deeply it mirrors Ivar Kreuger's story. Kreuger's empire collapsed when too many powerful people feared his influence. Similarly, Putin's empire is beginning to fracture under the weight of its own paranoia. Kreuger's downfall was tragic, but his methods using intellect and financial leverage to control larger forces are now being echoed by Sweden itself. This time, though, the goal isn't profit. It's protection, freedom, and balance in a world threatened by autocracy. Sweden's modern Kreuger-like strategy isn't about manipulation, it's about precision. Every policy decision, every defense upgrade, every partnership with NATO has been carefully calculated to strengthen Europe without provoking unnecessary conflict. It's strategic restraint, something Putin fundamentally doesn't understand. While he lunges at enemies with force, Sweden quietly fortifies its position, waiting for the moment when Russia's aggression collapses under its own weight. The truth is, Sweden doesn't need to fire a shot to make Putin afraid. Its very existence as a successful, free, and technologically superior nation is a threat to his entire worldview. Authoritarian systems fear examples of successful democracies because they show people that there's another way, one that doesn't involve fear, corruption, or control. And that's why Sweden's rise, not its weapons, is what keeps Putin awake at night. In recent years, Sweden has taken on a more assertive role internationally. It's leading discussions on Arctic security, contributing to global peacekeeping missions, and shaping the future of European defense strategy. Its military cooperation with the United States and the United Kingdom has brought it into the heart of NATO operations, even before official membership was confirmed. All of this adds up to one undeniable fact. Sweden is no longer a bystander in global security, it's a leader. So when you hear the name Kreuger today, it's more than history. It's a metaphor for a nation that uses intelligence, resilience, and quiet strength to rise above chaos. Putin may have feared NATO's expansion, but what truly terrifies him is Sweden's silent transformation into a superpower of influence. Like Kreuger before, Sweden doesn't need armies to command respect, it does it through innovation, strategy, and the power of example. And as the world watches the confrontation between democracy and autocracy unfold, one thing is clear: Sweden's strength lies not in its size, but in its vision. It's the nation that teaches us that true power is not about who shouts the loudest, but who plans the smartest. That's why the Kremlin trembles, because Sweden's modern Kreuger spirit is reshaping Europe, and no amount of threats or propaganda can stop it. In the end, this isn't just Sweden's victory, it's a message to the world. Brilliance, unity, and purpose will always outlast tyranny, and as history shows, those who underestimate the quiet ones often learn their lesson too late. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the power play between Sweden and Russia, make sure to stay tuned for more. The story is far from over, and the winds of change blowing across Europe are only getting stronger.